When it comes to reality shows, it's not uncommon for the directors and producers to make some players seem more unlikable than others using deceptive camera shots and editing. But in the case of the animated Total Drama series, some characters don't need editing and are just unlikable all on their own. But which characters stand out as the absolute worst? I'm Kristijan with Wicked Binge, and this is the worst Total Drama characters and why they suck. With how many Total Drama seasons and characters there are, we have plenty to choose from. As such, we aren't going to be including any original characters from TDI's spin-off show, The Redonkulous Race. We'd also like to mention that just because a character was a villain doesn't guarantee them a spot on this list. Sometimes the worst sins to a fan aren't when characters are evil, but when they're boring, annoying, or just plain aggravating. Anyway, let's get started. First up on our list, we're going to be talking about Sierra. During Total Drama World Tour, 2 new characters were added to the original cast, these being Alejandro and Sierra. While Alejandro seemed to become a favorite from the start thanks to his evilness, skills, and chemistry with Heather, it took audiences a bit longer to warm up to Sierra. Being the crazy fangirl archetype, many saw her obsessive nature with the Total Drama franchise, and with Cody specifically, to be annoying at best and absolutely creepy at worst.
I want my kiss!
Many also see her as being particularly one-note, as practically all of her dialogue seems to revolve around either Cody or Total Drama in general. She's also pretty manipulative when it comes to her advances towards Cody, to the point where she even tries to trick him into getting married for real during the Niagara Falls wedding challenge. We are putting her at the bottom of the list, however, because for all her flaws, she does have some more likable moments, like when she was the only one to remember Cody's birthday, or when she did all she could to help him when he got into the final 3 of World Tour. She's not a bad character per se, we just wish she wasn't so one-note most of the time. And speaking of one-note, following her is the briefly seen Stacy. If you look up unmemorable in the dictionary, you'll probably find a photo of this girl. And for those who do actually remember her, it's probably not for a good reason. Being the first character voted off in Revenge of the Island, many see her as elimination fodder due to her not really having much of a character at all. Even when compared to other elimination fodder contestants, Stacy feels like the absolute bottom of the barrel. She only has one real gimmick, that being how she's always talking and always bringing up stories of her many relatives who allegedly did amazing things.
And my great-great-great-aunt Dora actually taught Native Canadians to carve totems.
It's hardly a funny gimmick, and we can't imagine many people who would want to deal with it, nor with Stacy in general, beyond one episode. Next we have the controversial Ezekiel, the original black sheep of the OG Total Drama cast, in a sense. Being seen as a fairly slow-witted boy, Ezekiel was the first to be voted off the island for being sexist, claiming that boys were stronger and better than girls.
Well, guys are much stronger and better at sports than girls are.
For whatever reason, he was brought back in Total Drama World Tour only to be voted off first, again, after screwing up the challenges in Egypt. Except this time, he didn't just disappear, and instead ended up going feral, becoming a sort of parody of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. There's a nice mix of reasons why people don't really like this kid. Some see him as annoying and a waste of time, taking a spot in the 3rd season that could have been given to a different character. Others see him as a waste of potential, believing that he could have been an interesting character addition to the 3rd season if actually given the chance to grow and compete. And others, well, they just see him as one of the biggest signs that Total Drama had truly jumped the shark, as it were, with his transformation into a monster coming off more as ridiculous than funny. Still, considering those who did see his potential, there are some people who actually didn't mind Ezekiel too much, and many more who just feel sorry for the poor kid who, we'll admit, didn't really deserve all the pain he got. Bringing in some so-called wizard's magic, next is Leonard. Like Ezekiel and Stacy, many fans see Leonard as elimination fodder that never should have been brought back for Redonkulous Race, with some even believing that he should have never been on Total Drama at all. While having a cosplayer on the show would have been cool, it's pretty obvious that Leonard is meant to make fun of cosplayers and live-action roleplayers. He's so lost in his wizardry that he ends up being more of a hindrance to or annoyance for all the other characters he interacts with. Again, it just comes down to him being extremely one-note, acting as more of a joke than an actual character. Moving on, we have Eva next. This girl takes being aggro to the next level. As it stands, her anger issues are pretty much her entire personality. You do feel just a bit bad for her getting eliminated twice in the 1st season, the 2nd time happening right after she's brought back to the island, and never getting the chance to compete again. But at the same time, you can't necessarily blame the other characters for not liking her much, given her tendency to accuse others of trying to sabotage her, and her unnecessary bullying of Bridget after she was brought back to the island.
It's payback time.
Maybe she could have had a nice arc where she learned to control her temper, but unfortunately for Eva, it doesn't look like she'll ever get that chance. Next, let's talk about Zoe. Bland, helpless, useless. These are just a few of the ways that Zoe's haters choose to describe her. Meant to be one of the nicer characters of the, at the time, brand new cast, she began to get on a lot of people's nerves when they saw how clueless she could be regarding things like Mike and his identity disorder, or when characters like Scott tried to trick her.
What if they hate me?
Some see her as a sort of damsel in distress due to how often she tends to rely on her close friends Mike and Cameron for help, completely ignoring the times where she's actually able to fight for herself fairly well. In cases like her commando persona, some see it as just a one-time gimmick that doesn't erase her character's biggest flaws, those being her dependency on other characters and her boring nice girl personality. Let's take a trip to Jersey Shore with our next character, Anne Maria. Hey, you guys like Jersey Shore references and jokes? Wait, you don't? No, well, that's too bad, because that's pretty much all that Anne Maria is.
The tan, the hair. Look at me, I'm hot.
Despite how long she was on the island for, her only real achievement was briefly getting in between Mike and Zoe's relationship after falling for one of Mike's altars. She's extremely selfish, only caring about her hair, and is just a huge jerk to anyone who crosses her. Now, if she were actually a threat in the competition, maybe she could have become more than just a stereotype joke, and would instead be comparable to characters like Joe and maybe even Heather. Unfortunately, that just wasn't in the cards for Anne Maria, leaving her to be little more than a shallow character and an extremely dead reference in the eyes of many fans. Following her is the one and only Courtney. Out of all the characters on this list, Courtney may just be the most tragic, given how likable she was at first. Throughout season 1, there was plenty to enjoy about her, from how competitive and determined she was, to her chemistry with Duncan, to her fun character arc from being a rules-following princess to someone a bit more willing to cut loose.
You are so vile. Do your parents even like you?
Unfortunately, all of that started going out the window in season 2 and beyond, where the writers took her competitive nature to the extreme. It got to the point where she was willing to backstab and threaten other competitors, including her own boyfriend, with either her access to lawyers or her own fists, just to get her hands on the million. She was whiny, self-centered, prideful, hypocritical, and incredibly arrogant. Fans also hated how toxic she became when she started dating Duncan, wanting to change and fix everything about him, and then getting angry when he understandably didn't want to date her anymore. Her dumpster fire of a relationship with Gwen didn't fare much better, and the less we say about her portrayal in Total Drama All-Stars, the better. If not for many still remembering how good of a character she was in season 1, it's doubtful that Courtney would have any actual fans. Entering our bottom 5 is the pretty unlikable wannabe celeb, Blaney. Being the only Total Drama competitor who wasn't a teenager, you would think that Blaney would have been just a bit more mature, but of course she turned out to be just as drama-hungry as some of the show's worst antagonists.
Who am I? Who are you?
She was loud, rude, nosy, and, like many other people who are obsessed with spreading rumors or becoming popular, very irritating. While she may have only been a competing cast member for only a couple episodes in World Tour, it's pretty well agreed upon that her time on the show was easily one of the low points of that season. Her impact on the Aftermath episodes was pretty negative too, and it's hard to really find any sort of redeeming qualities with her. If anything, her short time on the show was probably the quote-unquote best aspect about her. Ranked as just a little bit suckier than her is another well-disliked blonde, Sugar. Yet another character who was little more than a dated pop culture reference, this time making fun of Honey Boo Boo. Being one of the season's antagonists, Sugar was pretty hostile and unlikable from the word go, often targeting Ella for no particular reason. She was annoying, super gross, and just all around unlikable and unfunny. Being a former pageant girl, they really could have done so much more with her to make her interesting, and that understanding of her missed potential makes her all the more frustrating to fans. Others just see her as a much less likable female Owen, having all of Owen's worst jokes without the enjoyable and fun personality.
Choo-choo! I'm a bus!
There are a few fans out there who think that she can occasionally be funny or useful, though you'd be hard-pressed to find them, and there are still some wondering how she managed to make it into the final 3. For our third least liked TDI character, we had to go with Dave. The most normal guy on Pakato Island, there's a lot that could have been done with Dave. He could have been the straight guy to everyone else's shenanigans, the guy with a ton of secret strengths and skills. Hell, even just making him a slightly blander version of Noah would have been better than what the show ended up doing with him. And what exactly did the writers do with Dave that was so awful? Simple. They turned him into a quote-unquote nice guy who was consumed by his one-sided crush on Sky and who could never get over her rejection of him. This whole subplot in itself was pretty annoying after a while, but seeing him go so far as to try and severely injure Sky during the finale's big challenge and wanting to win the money so he could light it on fire in front of Sky easily made him one of the worst characters in the eyes of many fans.
I'm gonna light it on fire in front of Sky!
Add in the fact that he didn't really have much to his character beside his awful crush and his slight judgmental nature towards the other campers, and you've got yourself a pretty terrible character. Getting second place in being the worst, we have Amy. Of all the terrible, one-note, gimmicky characters in Total Drama's history, this is perhaps the one that people hate the most, not being able to give her any redeeming qualities whatsoever. At least with other similar campers, you could say that they were occasionally funny or that they had potential, but with Amy, she's literally just the evil twin trope, and that's it. She doesn't try to seriously compete, nor make friends or alliances with other campers, or even has any real achievements of her own to speak of. She just spends the entire time being terrible to her sister for no apparent reason.
Whose fault is this? Mine.
At the very least, she does get her comeuppance when Sammy takes her place, but even this is hardly considered a victory when Sammy doesn't get to stay for very long. There's nothing wrong with having a mean or even an irredeemable character, but when they're only going after one person, one who doesn't even deserve it and isn't really given the chance to fight back, it just becomes tiresome, boring, and hard to watch. But real quick, before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying this video, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We ask because we'd really appreciate the help getting to our next milestone, and we have lots more videos we'd love to share with you. Thanks so much. Finally, our gold medal for most hated goes to the infamous Mal. Yep, we're talking about this character again. Let's start off with things that are terrible about Mal as a character first. He's your typical one-dimensional villain, and while that can sometimes be fun or at the very least entertaining, Mal's brand of evil is just incredibly dull and not at all impressive. Despite the show wanting us to act like Mal is some evil mastermind who's on the level of Satan, let's face it, the Total Drama franchise has had many much better villains, and outside of Mal's villainy, he's just a completely flat character who doesn't really have anything memorable about him outside of his gimmick.
Pretending to be that boring was really getting to me.
But let's get on to what's terrible about him in general. Much like Gollum Ezekiel, the addition of Mal was seen as a jumped the shark moment for the series, and is considered to be one of the reasons why the All-Star season was as terrible as it was. Not only is the evil split personality thing a cliche, but it's also pretty insensitive to people who actually have identity disorders. Furthermore, whenever Mal was around, it always felt like the writing took a downturn. Between Mal's obvious plot armor and how everyone around him seemed to magically become more stupid in order for Mal to continue tricking and manipulating them, it just all felt so lame. In failing to be intimidating or impressive, and in being someone who only detracted from his debut season instead of adding to it, Mal easily became one of the worst Total Drama characters of all time. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, or if we miss any terrible Total Drama characters, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos, but most importantly, stay wicked.